The Higgs boson is an elementary particle in the standard model of particle physics produced by the quantum excitation of the Higgs field, one of the fields in particle physics theory. It is named after Pihizitsits. Wait, what? What is this thing even saying? Those are a lot of big words. I'm just going to pause there. All right, fourth grade. Has this ever happened to you where you're reading and all of a sudden, like, there's a whole bunch of words that you're like, what is that even saying? Well, this lesson is about that. We've all had that experience. So stay tuned, and we are going to solve this problem of stumbling on words that are incredibly tricky to read, but fear not, there are strategies to help us figure out what things like these crazy words mean. Of course, we're not going to be researching the quantum excitation of the Higgs field. We're going to be talking about the Revolutionary War, because that's what our expedition is about. So stay tuned. All right, fourth grade. So, as I said, we all come across this problem when we're reading. We find some big words, and we don't really know what to do about it. But this lesson is titled Big Words, No Big Deal. We can get through it together. All right, so let's think about some things we've talked about this year that good readers do. And the first thing that's in bold right here, you'll notice it says we think when we read, or think when you read. So we've talked about how as you're reading, you're not just like picking the words off the page and hoping they make sense. You're actually like actively thinking. So you're asking questions as you read, you're making predictions as you read, you're making visuals in your head, you're sort of painting a picture or making a movie in your head. We've talked about those things this year, and all of you are quite good at doing that kind of thing. So another thing that good readers do relates to this idea of coming across unknown words or words that are sort of vague and tricky. So we're going to call it monitoring your understanding, which is another thing that good readers do. And it actually has more to do with your overall understanding, but it especially has to do with words that you don't know. And what that means is, kind of like how on my introduction there, I started reading and I got halfway through and I realized I don't understand what this is saying. So I was monitoring, I was noticing, this isn't making sense to me. And a lot of you probably do that, and a lot of you probably pause and you think, and you try to make sense of what you just read. You might go back and reread it. One thing you do as you're monitoring is you notice new or unknown words. So this lesson has two targets. It says I can notice new or unknown words. Like when I came across that word quantum mechanism or whatever that was, I just noticed that I didn't know what they meant. And then the second target is I can notice key vocabulary words. So it might be a word you do know, but maybe you only kind of know it, or you're realizing as you're reading this text, this seems really important to this text. This word is going to be one I'm going to want to understand. So it's two targets. I can notice new or unknown words. I can notice key vocabulary words. All right, let's move to the next slide. So, as you know, we are going to be studying the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War is the time where America became America. The country we live in now wasn't always a country. As you've learned from Mrs. Mason and right before this school break, that there were colonies here in North America, but they weren't countries yet. And we weren't the United States yet. Well, there was a big war that happened, and we're going to learn about it. And to know about it, you're going to learn a lot about the people who lived in America. But what I'm thinking is a war is always between two sides. So there's the side in America, but then there's also the side over in England. And that's who the Americans fought against. So we're going to do some reading about what it was like in England during that time, just so you have a little bit of background knowledge, so the rest of this expedition will be that much easier. Key to all of this is some really important vocabulary words that will continue to come up in Expedition. And a lot of those vocabulary words are in the text that you're going to read for this lesson. All right, now on to the show here. It says, listen to Andre and I read. So in the next part of the video, you're going to see me reading and Andre sitting next to me. And he's going to stop me when he hears a word he doesn't know. Remember, that's all our target is. We don't have to try to figure out the meaning of those words just yet. We just want to listen and notice when we find a word that we're not sure what it means. Then we're going to identify some key vocabulary words that keep coming up. All right, so in just a second, you will hear Andre and I reading. All right, I've got my assistant Andre here, and we are going to read aloud from this text. And when I get to a word that Andre doesn't know, he is going to pause me and show you what it's like to be thinking about a word you don't know as it comes across. You ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
All right. War's begun. It seemed like any other day in the country schoolhouse on the outskirts of Boston. The youngest children pored over their primers.
Wait, what are primers?
Oh, so you're not sure what primers are?
Mm-mm.
All right. But that's good that you noticed that as you were reading. All right, so you're already asking questions as you read. Great job.
Thanks.
I'll reread that sentence. The youngest children pored over their primers, while older students recited Latin phrases. The schoolmaster looked sternly at those who wiggled or talked out of turn. Suddenly, a distant tramp, tramp, tramp broke the spring morning stillness, and the students looked up from their books. The sound grew louder. All right, so we have one word on the first page that we're not sure about. All right, let's pause there, and then we'll go to the second page. Soon, to their amazement, hundreds of British soldiers marched past their school. The soldiers, dressed in crimson coats and tall red and gold hats, marched in step as their officers, mounted on magnificent horses, urged them forward. Lay down your books, said the schoolmaster. War's begun, and school is done. The British soldiers were marching against musket-toting American militiamen.
What are militiamen?
Militiamen? I don't know. All right, good question. The Americans, once loyal to the crown, were preparing to fight for freedom from British rule. Over time, many of the colonists in British North America had become unhappy under Great Britain. They had raged against intolerable acts passed by Parliament and the royal proclamations that restricted their freedom. England's answer was to send troops and tighten its hold on the colonies. After years of protests and riots, the colonists and their mother country were at war. I wanted to pause there for a second. I was wondering if you know what the word British means. Just a yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if you know what Parliament is.
What did you read?
Right there in the middle.
Doesn't that mean like...
Oh, don't answer it. Just do you know it or not?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I have like a clue of what it means.
Right. You have some vague idea, right? And that happens when you're reading, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. And then, again, just say yes or no. It says, the colonists in their mother country. Do you know what it means by their mother country?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to keep reading. Here we go. Paragraph 3. At one time, such a war seemed impossible. The people living in the 13 colonies alongside the Atlantic coastline had long been loyal subjects of the English king. From the time of the earliest settlements in North America, they had considered themselves to be English and looked to their home country for guidance and support. Only recently, the colonists and British soldiers had fought side by side against France and its Indian allies over France's North American claims. Indian warriors preferred the French, who bought their furs, to the English colonists who settled on their land. Fierce battles raged in the western forests and mountains and north into Canada. The British were victorious against their longtime French enemies, and France was driven off the continent. Okay, pretty good?
Yeah.
So probably in that text for us, we probably had 4 or 5 words that we want to look into further, right? All right. So we're going to pause there, and I'm going to highlight those words. And all right, welcome back. So as you were listening to that, these were 3 of the key words that Andre noticed that he didn't know what they meant. So primer, militiamen, and parliament. He stopped me at those points. Well, actually, parliament I had to ask him about later because he actually missed that. He sort of blew right past it and didn't really know what it meant. So it's important that you actually stop like he did with primer and militiamen. And he just noticed, he was monitoring, and he just noticed that he didn't know what those words meant. There are some other key words in this text. So those were words that were new to him that he didn't know. But there were also some really important key words, words that I have a feeling are going to come up a lot in this expedition because they came up a lot in the text. And the next slide is going to show us what those words are, I think. There they are. All right, so we heard the word British. We heard the word the Crown, Great Britain, intolerable, Parliament again, mother country, and English. A lot of those words are going to come up a lot in this expedition, and they're actually going to come up a lot in the part that you're going to read for the independent work part of this lesson. Just to give you a little bit of a clue that will help you with the independent part, English means that you're from England. Great Britain is basically another word for England, and therefore British and English pretty much mean the same thing. And when the text refers to the mother country, it's talking about the country of England. So that still leaves this word intolerable and parliament and the crown as words that we're not totally sure about. Here is your assignment for the independent work part of this lesson. Read the passage from Sons and Daughters of Liberty. It's in Google Classroom. So in the ELA section of Google Classroom where you found this lesson, you will also find this text that you're going to read. There's 2 parts in it, and you'll be reading really every word in the text. But the 2 parts are 1760, Be a King. There's that section, and then there's another section called The King and the Kingdom. You'll read both parts of that. If you would like to print these out and not read them on a screen, just ask your parents or just print them. I would actually recommend printing them instead of reading them on a screen if you have that capability. If you can't, you can just read them on the screen. It'll be fine. Okay. As you're reading, you're going to write down new words, unknown words, and key words. So sort of like how Andre and I just did, we identified words we didn't know, and then we identified words that we thought were really important to this text. You're going to write those down as you're reading. If you printed it out and you have a highlighter, you could also highlight those words, or you could circle them, or you can underline them. I'm going to warn you that this text is kind of challenging, and you might come across a lot of unknown words or keywords or things that are new to you, but that's sort of the point. So if as you're reading, you're monitoring your understanding and you're realizing, man, this isn't making a whole lot of sense to me, that is the point of this lesson. So your only task is to write down words that are new, unknown, or really important, and then to write them in the exit ticket in Google Classroom that you will also find in the ELA section. Spinning around. Okay, that's it for now. That's literally it for this week, is to read and write down the words that are hard for you. We don't have to figure out what they mean yet. You don't have to answer any questions about them yet. We'll get into that next week. But these are going to be key words that will help you through this entire expedition. And it's something that really good readers do, is they pick up on these key words. All right, that is your mission. So make sure you find the text, print the text if you can, find the key and unknown words, and type them into the Google exit ticket. That is your ELA lesson for the week. We will debrief about it on Friday if you're able to join us at our live debrief, and we'll continue with this next week, figuring out the meaning of some of these really important vocabulary words. All right, I hope you're all doing well, and please email or let me know if you have any questions. Good luck. Pihizit. Are you ready?
Or I could be anymore.